of my favorite quotes is George Patton, and he said, "If you're not gaining ground, you're losing ground."
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I needed to get back in the ring, because for me, what I came to realize was my business, in many ways, was my vehicle for personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
I would never, ever be who I am today if my businesses had not forced me to become it. Whether it be the type of leader that I've kind of tried to grow to be, type of
Mm-hmm.
manager that I've grown to be, so many skills I've picked up along the way because my businesses required it of me.
I understand that Peachtree, a couple of years later, was acquired, and during this acquisition, where you talk to brokers, you talk to a couple of people and companies who wants to buy your business. Well, how did you keep your culture intact? Because I imagine some people will be wondering, oh, okay, what's going to happen to us? Because Bryan's going to sell the entire business to some other company, some other individual, and we're going to have a new boss, new management, and there might be people who'd be anxious about it. And how did you go about it? How did you appease that and go through the sale as peaceful and as smooth as possible?
Yeah, it was challenging. There's no doubt about it. That was one of the key decision-making drivers on who we decided to go with, because we had multiple term sheets, and one of the main reasons we chose who we did to acquire the business was because we felt they were the best fit for our culture. And so one of the reasons I wanted to get that company sold was because I had taken it as far as I could. Mm-hmm. And I was able to represent that to my people, was that, look, I've taken you as far as I can. You're a middle manager, you're an ops manager, you're our sales manager, but I can't, there's no room for promotion for you in the current dynamic of this business right now. I can't grow it any bigger. We're already the biggest company in our market here in Nashville.
Yep.
And I can't take this thing multi-states, multi-city. I don't have the capital to do it. I don't have the appetite to do it.
Yeah.
So to continue to give opportunities to you and the other 100 some odd people that work here, that crew leader that wants to be the ops manager, we need to join with a bigger company. Yeah. So that's how I positioned it to our people, so nobody
Mm-hmm.
would be worried.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to say that with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, that's how it unfolded. Mm-hmm. The people that bought our business didn't want to get rid of our operating core. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to get rid of our talent. That's mm-hmm. why they were buying the company.
Yep.
And so it was tough. And in the beginning, I was really worried that when our team found out I was selling the business, that they would freak out and they would panic.
Yep.
But I was able to let them know that it was going to be okay, that this is actually an opportunity for them. Mm-hmm. And over time, they became acclimated to the idea that, this is the direction things are going. And it did take a year to sell that company. So everybody knew. It didn't like it happened overnight. Yep. Everybody knew this was happening.
Did you first over-communicate to them what was going to happen before you started talking with brokers, or did you talk with brokers ahead of time?
The latter. I didn't want to rock the boat until I knew this thing was going to happen. Right. So it wasn't until we had some interested parties, because I wasn't entirely certain that I was going to sell the company. I was going to try to, but mm-hmm. but you just never know about these things. And it wasn't until it looked like, okay, this is going to happen, that I then began to prepare everybody that, look, there's going to be some changes, but it's for the better.
Right. And it's tough selling your first baby, right? Because you started this young, very early on. You're 17 years old. This is like the thing that propelled you to having capital to start your next company. A lot of entrepreneurs have their identity intertwined with their first startup. I wouldn't deny that. I started up SEO Hacker, and when you say at least here in the Philippines, when you say Sean C, people think SEO hacker. So it's tough selling that business. And so I'm wondering, why would you sell a business and you started bootstrapped? So, and the question that I have right now is, there are some entrepreneurs who are thinking, should I bootstrap my business? Should I ask money from friends and family, or should I loan from the bank to start and capitalize my business? A lot of people are asking that. What is your advice to people who are wondering if they should bootstrap and start, just self-fund, use whatever capital they have to start their business, or take a loan from the bank, from friends and family, and start it bigger and grow it faster?
All I can tell you is what worked for me. And what worked for me was building a profitable business and growing the business from its own revenues and avoiding debt at all costs. I listened to Dave Ramsey from the time I was in my teenage years, all through my college years. While I was mowing yards, I had a headset, and I would listen to like Dave Ramsey 4 or 5 hours a day on talk radio. Mm-hmm. So his methodology of growing your business debt free was just beat into my head, and that's the way I built it. And it was slower, it was harder, it was not as fun. Couldn't move as fast as I wanted to. Had to buy used equipment rather than new equipment. But in many ways, that was one of the main reasons why my business was sellable. Yeah, was because it didn't have any debt. I had competitors in my industry that were trying to sell their companies for $22 million, and they had $19.5 million in debt.
Oh, wow.
And not a sellable business.
That sucks. Yeah.
Right. Because it just comes right in, it goes right back out. And so my business was debt free when we were acquired. And in many ways, that's why we were able to sell. And so for me, it worked. Now, if there's just some businesses you have to take on debt to get them going, or you have to take on angel investors or venture capital. I get that. In my assessment, that's a bad bet for most business owners. When it works, it's a beautiful thing, but it only works about 5 to 10% of the time.
That's a very small percentage out there. But yeah, I do agree. I did it bootstrap as well. I do encourage people to do it bootstrap so that you get to sleep well at night and not worry about your debt. I mean, for me, that's a big thing, to just be able to sleep well at night and not think about your debt, not think about all of these people asking you for your liabilities. And I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan right here.
Nice.
It's yeah, I just envy that you got to mow his lawn 10 years.
Yeah. Well, not his personal house. But we maintained the complex at Financial Peace Plaza. He lived in a nice house in Middle Tennessee, but I never got to touch it. But we did maintain his complex. Hard customer deal with. But man, like slow and low for most businesses pays off. Not all. And there's some businesses you got to take a big risk to win at. Yeah. But a lot of times, man, you're just going to drive off the cliff and not even leave skid marks. And that's tough, I like to win.
It is. And talking about Dave Ramsey, he usually says that it's not the people battling out in the front lines of a war that counts. It's the supply lines. How fast can your supply lines get to the frontliners? Because if they couldn't, then your frontliners are going to die off. And so a lot of people just, they take the loan, they deploy their frontliners too far out, and their supply lines couldn't get there on time. And so that's what bootstrapping does to you. It just helps you to check yourself, like, where are our potholes? Where are we going to have some speed bumps along the way? How fast can we get the supply lines to the front line?
Exactly. And some good advice I heard somewhere was leverage, not leap. And so if you know your business inside and out, you know your numbers, and you can go get 1,000 more customers for $100 each, and all you need to do is borrow a couple $100,000, and you can pay that back in 6 months, then it might make sense to do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times that's not the dynamics. It's I'm just starting a business and I'm going to go buy $500,000 of equipment, and next thing you know, you're personally bankrupt and you're digging out of a hole. Yeah. And the worst thing is, I see it happen with small business owners that I coach here locally in a little organization that we have. Oh, man. They get stuck. they get stuck after their business craters.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing to see. So don't be scared, but let that kind of scare you a little bit.
Yeah, because when you're bootstrapped, you just default to nothing, right?
Right.
You don't, dig your own grave. You don't jump into something 6 feet under. You just
You
default
can
to
only
nothing.
go to zero. You
Yeah,
can't,
that's it.
That's it.
So you sold Peachtree, and so you got acquired. You had a successful exit, but the weird thing about it is, for me, it's just 6 months after your exit, you started another company, and it is also somewhat in the same lawn mowing industry, but it is now tech centric. So why didn't you take more time off? You had all the money in the world that you could spend, but within just 6 months, you went back to starting up something new, risked funding into that company, and started cranking on it. Because you mentioned from a blue collar business, you're now starting a tech business, and that has a huge gap in terms of learning, and you had to go through all of that. What initiated? I mean, what just pumped you up to do this?
I guess when I sold my business, I spent 15 years building it. It was my identity. Like you made a point earlier, like it very much was who I was as a person. I felt almost like I had lost my identity, and it really felt empty inside. I felt hollow, almost like maybe like a pro athlete feels when they can't play anymore. It's kind of how I imagined it would feel.
Yeah.
And I did take a couple months off, 6 months. I did some traveling, but it's like one of my favorite quotes is George Patton, and he said, "If you're not gaining ground, you're losing ground."
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like I needed to get back in the ring, because for me, what I came to realize was my business, in many ways, was my vehicle for personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
I would never, ever be who I am today if my businesses had not forced me to become it. Whether it be the type of leader that I've kind of tried to grow to be, type of manager that I've grown to be, so many skills I picked up along the way because my businesses required it of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed that. I missed having that. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to start another thing. And it really wasn't hard to find what I wanted to do. I saw this happening with what Airbnb was doing for hotel accommodations, and what Uber and Lyft were doing for car rides, and I thought technology is going to hit this industry that I've spent my entire life in. It's just clear. And so I started GreenPal, which is basically the Uber for lawn mowing.
Mm-hmm.
So you need your grass cut, you jump on GreenPal, you get multiple quotes back, you just hire the guy that you want to come do it. You pay him right through the app.
Yeah.
And that idea in 2012 hasn't changed a bit now to 2020. It's the same type of thesis that I've had all along. Now the execution has kind of meandered along the way, but that was the vision then, and that's what it is today, is that it should be easy just to get this one simple household chore done by pushing a button.
Yep. And a lot of people had the same idea when Uber and Lyft were, they were just gaining traction. Airbnb was gaining traction. A lot of people had that idea. I mean, Uber for laundry, Uber for this, Uber for that. There were so many people getting into this mindset that, oh, hey, we can do an Uber for this and that. Right. But what made you succeed? Because I understand there must be some people who also had the same idea as you, but they're not here anymore. I don't hear about them. But you made it succeed, and you're in for 7 years now. You have 25 people in your team. You had 8 million in annual revenue last year. What's the difference? What's your secret ingredient?
Yeah, so there's a couple misconceptions by most anybody trying to tackle an Uber for X type of model. What they fail to appreciate is that for most service providers, they're not fungible commodities. Meaning, let's say your Uber driver, you really don't care if it's the same driver every time it picks you up. Matter of fact, you don't care. You just want the cheapest price.
Yeah.
Grass cutting, lawn care, yard maintenance, landscaping is not like that. You want to audition somebody who's really who's good, who's going to come out and earn your business and take care of your property for you, and you want to develop a relationship with them over a long period of time, because there's all this nuance around your home that you want them to know, and you don't want to go over every single time the service provider comes out. Right. And so unless you ran a business in this industry, you really wouldn't know that. You would look at it as though, it's Uber for grass cutting. So we knew that day one. And so we built a bottom-up marketplace where homeowners can get multiple quotes from service providers in their town and then hire the service they want to work with through our app and pay them and schedule them and rate them all through the app or website. And so it's a marketplace from the bottom up, whereas most other startups tackling this type of service, or Uber for massage or Uber for laundry, are really just trying to build a better massage company or build a better laundromat. They're not building a marketplace to power this service. So it's a nuanced difference, but it's fundamentally different. So it's kind of like the difference between Airbnb and Hilton.
Right.
It's connecting you. It's making that match and making that as simple and delightful as ordering an Uber, but still preserving that personal relationship that you have with your service provider.